What is up, Flavor Fam? It's Bobby, and today we are gonna rock some healthy budget meal prep. Because you know what? I'm tired of hearing people say it costs too much money to eat healthy. I have dozens of videos proving that is not the case, and today's recipe is another prime example of a nutrient-dense, delicious meal that only comes in at $3 per serving. So I hope you guys are ready for spice-crusted pork chops cooked until golden on the outside and juicy in the middle, sweet potato puree with maple syrup and cinnamon, and a kale, cauliflower, and nut salad. So if you love straight up delicious meal prep and that is healthy, sometimes weight loss friendly, sometimes keto, sometimes something for everyone, just click subscribe because I'm rocking out new videos every Friday and I want you to be a part of them. In front of me, I've got 10 thin cut, lean pork chops. I love these beauties because they cook really quickly. I'm talking maybe 2 minutes per side, and they have lots of surface area to get golden brown and to seal in that spice rub. So for the spice rub, I'm going super duper easy. I open the pantry and I grab some chili powder and some thyme. So let's put a couple teaspoons of chili powder in a bowl and 1 teaspoon of dried thyme. Spices are super duper cheap. I always have my pantry stocked with them. And if for some reason you didn't have chili powder, use sweet paprika or smoked paprika. Garlic and onion powder are a great replacement. It's all about building flavor with no additional fat up on these pork chops. Before I hit them up with the spice rub, I am gonna dust them with a liberal pinch of salt and then half of the spice rub. Flip the pork chops over and then hit it up with a little more salt and the rest of the spice rub. All right, even though these pork chops are juicy as is, a 20-minute marinade at room temperature is gonna add so much more flavor to them. While they are doing their thing, we can get started on the sweet potato puree, which is like a celebration of the fall winter flavors, but it's really creamy and silky and a great replacement for mashed potatoes. So let's swap out my pan here, grab my pot of boiling water, and in front of me I have just about 2 pounds of sweet potatoes that I peeled and chopped. Before I plunge them in the jacuzzi, I'm gonna season it with a nice pinch of salt and then carefully lower them in the water. The jacuzzi is about to be on the floor of my kitchen. All right, those cook for 10 minutes. Let me set a timer. In the meantime, we can get cracking on the salad. Everything happens fast and furious with this one, which means it gets in my belly even quicker. All right, this kale, cauliflower, raisin, and nut and cheese salad is life. It is so satisfying. If a salad could be life, this is it. So I have 1 large head of lacinato or black kale that I finely chopped here. I like to chop the kale really fine. I think it eats better that way. Now, we're gonna shave or grate raw cauliflower into the bowl. It sounds a little funky, but the raw cauliflower is super fresh and vibrant and adds a little bit of crunch that goes a long way in this bomb salad. So just take the head, cut it in half, and then grate it on a box grater on the largest setting. If you want it to be a lazy butt, you can buy the rice cauliflower that's done for you already at the market. It will raise the cost of the meal a little bit, but I think this is not that hard. We can use a little bit of elbow grease and no one's gonna get hurt. All right, that looks good. I try not to get too much of the stalk or the stump, I like to call it. Next up, we gotta up the crunchification factor of the salad even more and shake in a 1/4 cup of toasted and chopped walnuts and a couple tablespoons of raisins. And then the ingredient that really sets off the flavor of this salad is pecorino romano cheese. It's the cousin of Parmesan. It's cheaper. And if you think you can't eat cheese, if you're trying to be healthy, aged cheeses are your best friend. 1 tablespoon of this bad boy only has 20 calories and 1 gram of fat. So literally go in with a good 3 to 4 tablespoons. It looks like a mountain of Winter Olympian cheese there because of my microplaner, but that'll do. So we have salty cheese, nutty walnuts, earthy hearty kale, and sweet raisins. The body of the salad is done. We'll talk about the dressing later on. Let's check our sweet taters and get back to that. It's been about 10 minutes exactly, and the way to test if the sweet potatoes are soft and mashable is to just fish one out and then use a fork to give it a mash. If it's soft like that, you're good to go. And don't overboil it because it could actually become waterlogged and your puree is gonna be really watery. Let me take this to the sink really quick, drain it. Then I'm gonna grab the blender carafe here. And I like doing this when it's hot because it's receptive to all the flavors we're gonna toss up in the blender. So make sure you get almost all the liquid out of it and dump it in the blender. I did mean in the blender, not around the blender like I'm doing.
We don't have
If you don't have a blender, you could actually use a potato masher because everything is nice and soft, baby approved and senior citizen approved. Whether you have teeth or don't have teeth, this recipe hooks you up. Next up in the blender, I'm gonna reach for some maple syrup. Go ahead and add a tablespoon of that. You could also use honey or agave nectar. Just don't be using no Aunt Jemima. That will not work for this recipe. Next up, I want a little bit of heat in there to complement the sweet. So I'm gonna add a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper, a 1/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. And then instead of adding ground nutmeg, I always have these nutmegs in the pantry because when you grate them, they have a ton more flavor than the pre-ground stuff. So add a good maybe 1/8 of a teaspoon or a pinch of that. And then grate in some orange zest. As soon as that zest hits the hot sweet potatoes, it smells so good. Finally, I'm gonna pinch in a little bit of salt, and then I'll grab a little bit of black pepper. Now, a few of you guys have been asking for low salt versions of my recipes, but here's the deal. You can control the amount of salt you want because none of the ingredients I almost ever use are processed. They're 100% fresh and bland. So use less salt or always add lemon juice, vinegar, and zest to a recipe at the end. It's a great replacement for salt and it elevates the flavor. So at the end of the pork chops, squeeze over some lemon juice. At the end of this, squeeze in some lemon juice or a little shot of rice wine vinegar. You're made in the shade. All right, I'm gonna pop the lid on Blender McGee here, then take it back and blend away. I wish we had smell-o-vision and you can smell the aromas coming off of this blender right now because it smells like winter in one little blender. And look at that Gerber baby consistency. Perfectly smooth, whipped, and has a lovely color to it. That is awesome. The cinnamon, cayenne, and the nutmeg just tickle my taste buds, and that is perfectly seasoned. All right, this goes on the side. Check out my chops, you guys. Just 20 minutes sitting there doing nothing. Those spices have really penetrated down into the pork, adding a ton of flavor. I'm preheating a large cast iron pan over medium-high heat, actually 2 cast iron pans because I want to embrace the theme of Fast and Furious. I'm gonna drizzle in a couple teaspoons of avocado oil. You can also use grapeseed oil. If you guys don't have a cast iron pan yet, I'll leave a link down below in the description box to the ones I use. I mean, it will also work in a nonstick or a steel pan. It just won't get crusty AF, and that's what I'm all about. Once the pan preheats and the oil preheats, I'm gonna take the pork chops and just add them in. That is exactly the sound you wanna hear, a hot pan being happy. Also, if you don't have a splatter guard, get one. It will prevent the oil from going everywhere. Double splatter guard in effect. Remember, these are thin pork chops. They will literally take 2 to 3 minutes max each side. Overcooked pork is dry and bland, so let's flip it in 2 minutes. Perfect. You see the color on the edges in the middle of that pork chop? That is the hot pan and the spices making sweet, sweet love and creating insane amounts of flavor. I'm going 2 more minutes and then I'm evacuating. Last of the pork chops is out and smelling absolutely intoxicating, you guys. Now everything is done, but I do want to dress the salad like I would do on a day I want to eat it. So I would store the salad in the fridge just like this, but I would not dress it ahead of time, otherwise it could get soggy. So what I'll do is each day I want to eat it, I'll take a serving out, put it in its own bowl, and then pinch in a little bit of salt, add a crack of pepper, and then reach for some really good extra virgin olive oil. This stuff is from the Fresh Pressed Olive Oil Club. If you guys want a bottle for $1, use my promo code down in the description box. It's some of the best EVOO around. So add about a tablespoon, and then squeeze in some lemon juice. The cool thing about kale is that it's hearty, so you could actually dress it in the morning and it won't get wilted by lunch. So good. Zippy from the lemon juice, really hearty from the kale, and sweet raisins, crunchy walnuts. That is awesome. All right, I'm gonna show you how I plate this when you wanna eat it. To plate this meal, I would take some of the sweet potato puree and put a nice base on the bottom of a plate. Top it off with a couple of the pork chops, and then a big scoop of the salad. All right, let's cut a bite of this pork chop. You guys, spice crust has a ton of flavor. The pork chops are juicy. The sweet potato puree is nice and creamy and it's banging with flavor. All this, you guys, for $3. I mean, raise your hands if you would pay $3 for that. It's healthy, it's a full meal, and you get to eat it every single day this week because the recipe is down below in the description box along with the storage, the heating, the macros, all that good stuff. Make sure you hook me up and subscribe to my channel. If you want to see 2 more epic meal preps, they're streaming below me right now. But I'll see you next week. Until then, hashtag keep on cooking. Peace.